Welcome back. Glad to have you here. Tonight, an empire that measured worlds by their size is about to discover that humanity had never considered its moon a decoration. Let the story begin. High Marshal Vertal watched Earth's moon crawl across the tactical display and felt something close to amusement. It was a pale, scarred object, barely more than a quarter the width of the blue world it circled. It possessed no atmosphere worth naming, no oceans, no living forests, and no visible cities on the hemisphere facing the approaching fleet. Compared with the planetary companions of the Carveth Dominion, it was almost embarrassingly small. Around Vertal, the command deck of the Dominion battleship Crown of Measure glowed with geometric projections. 800 warships hung beyond the orbit of Mars, their black hulls arranged in concentric attack formations. Behind them waited 40 troop carriers, 12 planetary suppression platforms, and enough soldiers to occupy every major settlement on Earth within 6 days. The humans had detected them 73 hours earlier. They had not surrendered. Vertal folded his 4 upper limbs across the silver plates of his chest. The lower pair remained resting on the command cradle, where thin neural filaments connected him to the flagship. "Magnify the satellite," he instructed. The central projection expanded until the moon filled the chamber. Its surface was a wilderness of impact craters, ancient lava plains, abandoned landing grounds, mining corridors, and scattered human installations. Most were small, a few were buried. None appeared capable of challenging the Dominion fleet. Fleet analyst Orun inclined his narrow head. "The humans call it Luna," he reported. "Diameter, 3,474 kilometers. Mass, approximately 1/80th that of Earth. Surface gravity, negligible by Dominion standards." Several officers released low pulses of laughter through their throat vents. Vertal permitted himself a slow smile. Among the Carveth, moons were symbols of power. Their homeworld, Carve, possessed 9, the smallest of which was larger than Luna. The greatest, Ulmar, had been converted into a fortress 9,000 years before humanity's first permanent settlement beyond Earth. Carveth rulers did not wear crowns. They inherited moons. Every dynasty was measured by the worlds it commanded, every admiral by the celestial bodies he had broken, captured, or transformed. The Dominion's oldest proverb declared that a civilization with a small moon possessed a small destiny. Earth therefore presented no mystery. The humans were noisy, energetic, and inventive. Their ships crossed the inner system with admirable speed. Their orbital habitats supported nearly 200 million citizens. Their industrial furnaces burned on Mars, in the asteroid belt, and beneath the clouds of Venus. Yet their only natural satellite remained primitive. It carried mines, observatories, shipyards, and ceremonial monuments. It did not bristle with weapons. It was not wrapped in armor. It possessed no visible planetary shields, no mantle cannons, no equatorial launch rings. To the Carveth, this was not restraint, it was failure. Orun shifted the projection to reveal streams of intelligence gathered over 12 years. Human military vessels clustered near Earth. Civilian traffic fled toward protected orbits. Defense stations awakened across the planet's Lagrange points. The humans had assembled 112 combat ships, though only 27 qualified as heavy warships by Dominion classification. A pitiful response. "Their moon remains outside their primary formation," Orun said. "It is almost entirely undefended." "Not undefended," Vertal corrected. "Unworthy of defense." A younger officer named Tirvek rotated one of his eyes toward him. "High Marshal, human records show considerable cultural attachment to the satellite. Their literature, calendars, religions, navigation systems, and early scientific achievements all refer to it repeatedly." "Attachment is not capability," Vertal replied. "Primitive species often worship what they cannot control." He turned toward the main window. Beyond the reinforced crystalline hull, the stars shone motionless. Somewhere among them rested the distant Carveth Dominion, spread across 840 systems and governed by an imperial doctrine older than most spacefaring species. The Dominion did not destroy inferior civilizations without purpose. It measured them. Those that possessed strength were offered treaties. Those that possessed resources were offered service. Those that possessed neither were cleared away. Humanity had been evaluated for 26 years. Their rapid expansion had drawn attention, but their political divisions, limited fleet, and undersized moon had placed them firmly within the second category: useful, trainable, conquerable. Vertal opened a channel to the assembled fleet. All formations advance to the suppression boundary, he ordered. No bombardment unless authorized. Their ships are to be disabled, not annihilated. Their moon may be used for target practice if resistance continues. The laughter this time spread across every command deck in the formation. On Earth, beneath 5 kilometers of granite in the North Atlantic Defense Complex, Admiral Lena Okafor listened to the intercepted transmission without smiling. She sat at the center of a circular command room containing representatives from every major branch of the Terran Defense Authority. Maps of the solar system covered the walls. The approaching Karvath fleet glowed like a red storm beyond Mars. Around her, officers exchanged brief glances at the translated reference to Luna. No one laughed. General Mateo Sanz leaned toward her. "They still think it is a moon," he said. "It is a moon," Lena replied. "You know what I mean." Lena looked toward the far side of the room, where Dr. Elias Venn stood beside a sealed console. He was 64 years old, silver-haired, and thin from decades spent in low gravity. For 31 years, he had served as Chief Structural Architect of the Lunar Continuity Directorate. To the public, the Directorate managed subsurface habitats, impact prevention, and emergency infrastructure. Only 12,000 people knew its actual purpose. "Dr. Venn," Lena said, "confirm readiness." Elias placed his hand against the console. A sequence of biometric lights moved beneath his palm. "Lunar defensive configuration can begin within 40 minutes of authorization," he said. "Full displacement will require 19 minutes after ignition. Surface evacuation is already complete. Civilian tunnels are sealed. All mass anchors report stable." General Sands studied the red fleet icons. "And the crust?" "Within tolerance." "Mantle stresses?" "There is no active mantle," Elias said. "That simplifies matters." Lena looked again at the alien formation. The Karvath had entered the solar system expecting fear. Instead, they had found silence. Earth's diplomats had sent one warning and received no reply. Human ships had withdrawn into seemingly weak defensive lines. Lunar traffic had ceased without explanation. The aliens interpreted all of it as panic. That misunderstanding had been cultivated carefully. For 180 years, humanity had lived with an uncomfortable fact. Earth was vulnerable. It contained oceans, cities, ecosystems, and more than 11 billion people. No fleet could guard every angle of approach. No planetary shield could absorb unlimited fire. No orbital defense network could guarantee that every weapon would be intercepted. The answer had first appeared in a classified report written during the early years of interplanetary expansion. Earth did not need a larger fleet. Earth needed a shield that could not run out of power, could not be hacked, and could not be ignored. The moon had been waiting overhead for 4.5 billion years. Humanity began altering it slowly. Mining operations excavated more than resources. Tunnels became chambers. Chambers became conduits. Conduits became vast acceleration corridors stretching beneath the crust. Ancient impact basins concealed radiators. Research stations disguised command nodes. Helium extraction plants hid fusion complexes capable of generating more energy than entire nations had once consumed. No single generation built the system. No single government controlled it. Lunar Defense Protocol Aegis belonged to humanity as a whole. It had never been activated. Until now. Lena opened a direct channel to the defense fleet. Captain Ria Chen appeared above the central table from the bridge of the TDA Resolute, humanity's largest operational battleship. Her black hair was tied behind her head. The bridge around her trembled faintly as the ship adjusted position over the Pacific. "Admiral," Ria said, "the Karvath are accelerating. Estimated arrival at weapons range in 53 minutes. Hold formation," Lena ordered. "They outnumber us 7-1. Then let them believe the numbers matter." Ria's expression remained calm. "Understood." The transmission ended. Lena turned to Elias. "Begin preliminary release." For the first time that day, Dr. Elias Venn looked afraid. Not of the aliens, of the moon. He entered the first command. Across Luna, systems buried for generations awakened. Deep beneath Mare Imbrium, superconducting coils filled with blue current. Under the southern highlands, fusion chambers ignited in sequences measured to the thousandth of a second. 12,000 mass anchors disengaged from the lunar interior, releasing structures longer than cities. Dust rose from crater floors. Mountain ridges split along lines too straight to be natural. On the far side of the moon, where Earth could never see, immense black radiators unfolded from beneath the regolith like the wings of buried machines. The moon did not move yet, it prepared. High Marshal Vertal observed the first human fleet maneuver 42 minutes later. The human ships withdrew closer to Earth. It was, in his judgment, the correct response from an inferior civilization. Their vessels arranged themselves into 3 defensive arcs, each one too thin to resist concentrated fire. Civilian stations vanished behind emergency shielding. Orbital elevators halted. The small moon remained several 100,000 kilometers from the planet, drifting through its ordinary path. Tyrvek approached the command cradle. High Marshal, unusual thermal activity has appeared beneath the satellite's far side crust. Mining operations, Vertal said. The levels exceed industrial projections. Then their miners are frightened. Tyrvek did not move. There are also gravitational discrepancies. Vertal finally turned one eye toward him. Explain. The moon's measured mass has changed by 0.003%. An error. We have recalibrated 3 times. Orun joined them, carrying a cluster of fresh readings. Sections of the lunar surface are opening, he said. Approximately 900 concealed structures have become visible. Weapons? Unknown. Vertal enlarged the projection. Lines of pale light spread through the darkness of the moon's far side. They formed no conventional defense grid. There were no gun barrels, launch ports, or shield emitters. Instead, the structures resembled enormous rings embedded beneath the crust. One ring measured nearly 100 kilometers across. Vertal watched it rotate. What purpose would require machinery of that scale? Tyrvek asked. The High Marshal considered the question. Then he dismissed it. Humans built monuments larger than necessity demanded. Their history was full of wasteful displays, ceremonial towers, empty tombs, and machines created merely to prove they could be built. The moon was small. Whatever they had hidden inside it was constrained by that fact. Continue the advance, he ordered. The Dominion fleet crossed the orbit of Mars. At Earth, Admiral Lena Okafor watched the countdown reach 20 minutes. Captain Ria Chen's fleet held position between the planet and the Karvith. Every human ship transmitted openly, allowing alien sensors to map their power levels. It was another deliberate weakness. The Karvith saw reactors operating below combat maximum, weapons cold, engines restrained. They did not see the encrypted pulses traveling through the moon. Elias Venn remained at his console. The lunar core network is synchronized, he reported. Anchor alignment at 99.8%. Gravitational counterbalance is stable. General Sands looked at him. Will Earth feel it? Every tide on the planet will change by less than 4 centimeters during displacement. We have prepared for this. And afterward? Afterward depends on where we place it. Lena glanced at the tactical clock. The Karvith fleet was now 36 minutes from effective firing range. Begin ignition. Elias hesitated for less than a second. Then he pressed both hands to the console. On the moon, the first engine came alive. It did not resemble any engine the Karvith had ever catalogued. There was no exhaust plume, no visible combustion, no burst of radiation. Space itself bent. Beneath Oceanus Procellarum, a network of artificial gravity wells formed in sequence. Each pulled against the moon's mass, not with enough force to fracture it, but enough to persuade the entire celestial body that down existed in a different direction. A second network activated beneath Mare Serenitatis, then a third beneath the southern pole. Luna shuddered. Dust lifted from its surface in silent curtains. The stars behind it distorted. For the first time since long before humanity existed, the moon left its natural orbit by choice. Tyrvek was the first Karvith officer to understand that the readings were not an error. High Marshal, he said, the satellite is accelerating. Vertal stared at him. Clarify. Its orbital velocity has changed. By how much? 6 meters per second. Orun turned sharply from his station. 9 meters. The central projection recalculated. A thin white line represented the moon's expected orbit. A second line appeared beside it, curving inward, toward Earth. Vertal rose from the command cradle. "Natural instability," he said. "No, High Marshal," Orun replied. "The movement is controlled." The moon accelerated again. Across the Dominion fleet, navigation alarms activated. 800 warships began tracking the altered gravitational field. Formation computers issued automatic corrections as Luna's motion affected nearby trajectories. Vertal's throat vents tightened. A moon could not maneuver. Moons were captured, mined, fortified, shattered, or worshipped. They did not accelerate under their own power. The human satellite was now moving at 12 meters per second, beyond its expected orbital velocity. Then 15. Then 20. Tirvek projected the new path. "It is moving between the fleet and Earth," he said. For several seconds, no one spoke. Vertal examined the geometry. The moon's path was no panic descent. It was shifting laterally across the approach corridor, guided by invisible forces. Its rotation was changing as it moved, turning its far side toward the Karveth formation. The High Marshal finally understood the shape of the maneuver. The humans were placing the moon into a defensive position. A pulse of disbelief moved through the command deck. Orun stared at the display. "They are using it as a shield." Vertal's amusement vanished. On the bridge of the Resolute, Captain Rhea Chen watched Luna move across the stars. Even knowing it was coming did not make the sight feel possible. The moon had always been constant. It belonged to childhood windows, ocean tides, old songs, first colonies, and the silent history of Earth. It had watched humanity crawl from caves, cross seas, split atoms, and climb into space. Now it moved like a warship. Across the human fleet, thousands of crew members fell silent. Luna crossed above Earth's night side, its gray horizon bright against the planet's atmosphere. Deep fissures opened across its far hemisphere. Armor segments emerged from beneath the surface, each one hundreds of meters thick. They unfolded over impact basins and locked together, transforming the familiar lunar face into the protected rear of an engineered fortress. Rhea's tactical officer, Lieutenant Amina Vale, whispered as the gravitational readings climbed. Defensive alignment in 11 minutes. Rhea looked at the enormous body sliding between Earth and the invaders. "Not a shield," she said. "A position." A communication signal arrived from the Crown of Measure. The alien High Marshal appeared above the bridge. His armored body occupied most of the projection. Behind him, officers moved in visible agitation. "Human Commander," he said, "your manipulation of the satellite is noted. Return it to its original orbit and deactivate all hidden systems." Rhea remained seated. "You entered our system with an invasion fleet," she replied. "You were warned to withdraw. Your fleet cannot resist us. It does not need to." Vertal's eyes narrowed. The satellite cannot protect the entire planet. Rhea glanced at Luna's growing tactical shadow. It was never intended to. The transmission ended before the High Marshal could respond. On Earth, Admiral Lena Okafor authorized the next phase. "Lunar armor deployment," she ordered. Across Luna, ancient craters began to change shape. Tycho crater opened first. Its central peak split into 4 sections and descended. From the cavity below rose a circular structure lined with millions of reflective cells. It expanded until it covered most of the crater floor. Copernicus followed, then Kepler, then more than 300 lesser sites across the far hemisphere. The Karveth had expected guns. Humanity had built something else. Dr. Elias Venn watched energy flow through the network. Every cell was part of a distributed absorption lattice designed to capture incoming radiation, plasma, and kinetic force. The moon's outer layers had been threaded with metamaterials capable of redirecting energy through buried conduits. Those conduits led into chambers excavated through hundreds of cubic kilometers of rock. The moon could absorb punishment that would burn continents. More importantly, it could remember where the punishment came from. The Karveth fleet slowed. For the first time since entering the solar system, its formation hesitated. High Marshal Vertal summoned his senior officers to the strategic chamber. A 3-dimensional image of the altered moon hovered above the table. Its new trajectory placed it squarely before Earth's largest population centers. Human ships had moved into positions along its edges, using its mass to break direct firing lines. Fleet Analyst Orun spoke first. The satellite has altered our attack geometry. 31% of Earth is currently masked. That percentage will increase to 64 within 15 minutes. Then we fire around it, Vertal said. Human ships are positioned to intercept. Destroy them. They are using the satellite's gravitational field to accelerate laterally. Their maneuverability has increased. Vertal struck the table with one lower hand. It is a rock. No one answered. The High Marshal looked toward Tirvek. Can it be destroyed? Tirvek consulted the projections. Not quickly. Its internal reinforcement is extensive. The crust contains layered alloys and energy dispersal channels. Standard bombardment would require several hours. Then we have several hours. Orun shifted uneasily. High Marshal, the human fleet has not fired. That is because they cannot win, or because they are waiting. Vertal focused all 6 eyes on him. Waiting for what? Orun looked at the moon. For us to fire first. Silence filled the chamber. The Karvath doctrine of celestial measure taught that strength must be demonstrated. A force that approached an enemy and then withdrew without testing its resistance lost authority across every client species watching. The invasion had already been broadcast throughout the Dominion. Retreat was politically impossible. Vertal returned to the command deck. Target the lunar surface, he ordered. Concentrated fire. 100 ships. Tirvek stiffened. High Marshal, the humans may regard that as escalation. We crossed 4 planetary orbits with an occupation fleet. Escalation is no longer a meaningful distinction. The selected Karvath warships moved forward, their spinal weapons charged, forming blue-white spheres along the length of their hulls. Each vessel could crack a city from orbit. Together, they carried enough energy to erase the visible face of the moon. On Earth, billions watched through emergency broadcasts. Lena Okafor stood in the command complex as the alien weapons reached maximum charge. Dr. Elias Venn looked at her. The lattice has never absorbed a strike at this scale. It was designed for 3 times this scale, Lena replied. Designed is not the same as proven. No, she said. It never is. The first Karvath volley crossed space. 100 beams converged on Luna. For an instant, the far side of the moon became brighter than a star. The impact should have excavated mountains. Instead, light spread across the defensive lattice in branching rivers. Tycho crater ignited. Copernicus burned white. Energy raced through buried conduits and vanished beneath the crust. The moon trembled but held its course. A second volley followed, then a third. The Dominion battleships poured enough fire into Luna to vaporize an unprotected world's atmosphere. The moon absorbed it. Within the crown of measure, warning tones filled the bridge as sensors failed to reconcile the readings. The target is retaining energy, Tirvek reported. That is impossible, Vertal said. No, High Marshal, it is redirecting the energy internally. To what purpose? Orun's head rose slowly from his display. The lunar engines are increasing output. The answer appeared across the tactical projection. Every Karvath strike made the moon move faster. Humanity had not merely placed Luna in front of Earth. It was feeding the attack into the moon's displacement system. Vertal watched the satellite accelerate sideways, expanding the defensive arc. It crossed the fleet's line of fire with impossible precision, shielding one orbital region after another. Human ships moved behind it in coordinated groups, emerging only long enough to fire defensive volleys before disappearing again. The moon was not passive armor. It was maneuvering with the fleet. The sight offended every principle the High Marshal had inherited. A small moon was supposed to signify weakness. Humanity had turned its smallness into control. A larger body could never have been moved so rapidly. A massive gas giant companion would have been useless. Luna's dimensions, which the Karvath had mocked, were precisely what made the maneuver possible. Vertal saw the logic only after it had trapped him. Cease fire, he ordered. The beams stopped. The lunar lattice dimmed. For several seconds, both fleets remained motionless. Then Admiral Lena Okafor opened a system-wide channel. High Marshal Vertal, she said, you have now discharged hostile weapons against a protected human world. Withdraw beyond Mars and prepare to negotiate. Vertal's voice emerged through every ship. You hide behind a satellite. Lena looked at the moon on the wall display. Yes, she replied. That is what defensive positions are for. The simplicity of the answer struck harder than an insult. Tal tightened his limbs around the command cradle. "Your moon cannot remain between us forever." "No," Lena said. "It does not need to." Elias Venn looked toward her. The lunar core had reached full charge. Energy captured from the Karvath bombardment now flowed through the acceleration rings. The moon's engines were no longer merely shifting its orbit. They were establishing a controlled gravitational front along the entire approach corridor. Lena gave the final authorization. "Activate the Aegis field." The moon moved again. This time, every Karvath ship felt it. A gravitational wave expanded from Luna's far side. It did not crush hulls or tear crews apart. The humans had shaped it with extraordinary care. The wave altered momentum rather than structure, gripping the advancing fleet and pushing it away from Earth. The crown of measure lurched. Tal's command cradle tightened around him as inertial systems compensated. Across the formation, 800 warships slid backward. Engines flared at maximum output, but the moon's field continued to drive them outward. Tirvek stared at the velocity readings. "We are being moved, counter with full thrust," Tal ordered. All ships complied. The gravitational pressure increased. Humanity's moon advanced. It crossed the defensive boundary with majestic slowness, its armored hemisphere facing the Karvath. The buried rings pulsed beneath the surface. Dust streamed from the lunar horizon. Behind it, Earth hung blue and luminous. To the watching galaxy, the image was impossible. A moon was escorting an invasion fleet out of the system. Karvath battleships fired their engines until drive housings glowed. Some attempted lateral escape. The Aegis field adjusted, nudging them back into formation. Others launched missiles, only to watch human interceptors destroy them from the moon's flanks. The humans did not pursue with vengeance. They maintained pressure. They gave the Dominion a path to retreat. Tal understood the mercy embedded in the maneuver, and that understanding deepened his humiliation. Humanity could have converted the gravitational field into a weapon. It could have destabilized reactors, shattered formations, or hurled ships into one another. Instead, Earth's defenders pushed. Steadily, relentlessly, like a hand against the chest of an intruder. The crown of measure crossed the orbit of Mars 3 hours later. The lunar field weakened. The Karvath fleet stabilized, scattered but intact. Not one Dominion ship had been destroyed. More than 200 had suffered engine damage. None could resume the invasion. Luna stopped near the boundary of its engineered displacement range. Its armor remained locked. Its crater lattices glowed faintly with captured light. Tal stood before the bridge window, watching the small moon hold position against the stars. Orun approached him. "The humans are transmitting terms." Tal did not turn. "Read them. All Dominion military vessels will withdraw from the solar system. Diplomatic representatives may return aboard a single unarmed ship. Prisoners will be exchanged. Damaged vessels may request technical assistance." "Technical assistance," Tal repeated. "They are offering repair support after we attack them." "Yes." Tal's throat vents opened slowly. "Why?" Orun looked toward the distant moon, perhaps because they have already proven what they needed to prove. The High Marshal remained silent for a long time. Then he ordered the fleet to withdraw. News of the failed invasion crossed the Dominion within 12 days. At first, the Imperial Councils rejected the reports. They assumed sabotage, human propaganda, or cowardice among the fleet command. Then the censor records arrived. Every world saw Luna move. They saw the tiny satellite leave its orbit. They saw it place itself before Earth. They saw alien fire spread across its surface. They saw the moon advance and drive 800 warships backward without destroying them. The Karvath language had no word for a celestial body that chose to defend. A new word had to be created: Talun, the world that stands. High Marshal Tal returned to the solar system 7 months later aboard an unarmed diplomatic vessel. He found Luna near its original orbit. Human engineers had already begun repairing the damage. Armor sections remained visible across the far side, but the familiar face turned toward Earth looked almost unchanged. Admiral Lena Okafor received him in the Tranquility Conference Hall, constructed beside one of humanity's first lunar landing sites. Through the window behind her, Earth filled half the sky. Tal studied the human admiral. "Why return it?" he asked. The defensive position was stronger. Lena looked toward Earth. "Because it is more than a defensive platform." "Then why alter it at all?" Because sometimes the things people love must become strong enough to protect what they love. Vertal considered that answer. The Dominion measured civilizations by the size of their moons, he said. Humanity measured itself by what it could do with the moon it had, Lena replied. The treaty signed that day ended the Carveth doctrine of celestial measure. Within a generation, the Dominion stopped ranking species by the worlds they controlled. Within 2, its engineers began working beside human scientists on defensive systems designed to preserve planets rather than conquer them. Luna became the most studied object in known space. Delegations crossed hundreds of systems to walk its restored plains. Children from distant species learned the story of the invasion fleet and the small moon that moved. Carveth academies taught the battle as the moment their civilization discovered that scale and strength were not the same thing. Humanity never activated Aegis in war again. It did not need to. Every fleet that approached Earth knew what rested above the blue planet. They knew the craters were doors. They knew the mountains concealed engines. They knew the quiet light in Earth's night sky belonged to something ancient, familiar, and awake. The aliens had mocked humanity's small moon. Then it moved into a defensive position, and from that day onward, no one in the galaxy ever mistook small for helpless again.